Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer board game or board games review. In this specific video, I'm going to be covering Level 99's re-release of their classic Noir Deductive mystery game and Sellswords Olympus, a 2-player game and a 2 to 4 player game, and we'll cover both these games. They're both re-releases from their classic style games. One is a murder mystery involving inspectors and murderers, or buddy cops working together, or two teams competing against each other to find out who's who. It's kind of a grid management style game with deductive reasoning. And then Sellswords Olympus is a tile management game where you're drafting tiles, playing them down onto one of the many different Olympian locations, having 2 rounds, playing 6 cards each round until you have a 5x5 grid, and whoever has the most value, kind of like the game Go, is the winner. We'll cover Noir and how to set that game up first, then we'll go to Olympus, then we'll talk about how to play each game, and finally my review for both of these little classic games from Level 99. To begin the setup for the game Noir Deductive Mystery Game, the first thing you'll do is determine which game you are playing. There are 4 games you can play in this: Buddy Cops, Dragnet, Spy Tag, and Killer versus Inspector. And each of the games have a different value of players. But for the most part, all of the games are going to involve you creating a 5x5 grid of these characters here. The grid is going to consist of the characters that have the name as well as the deceased side on the back. And typically speaking, you're going to have a deck of shuffled up gray cards. And depending on how you play the game, you will deal out a number of these cards to players that they can either utilize as their identity or a way in which they can solve the identity of the characters here. And then based on the game, you're also going to be using the cards associated with that game. So Killer versus Inspector, you're going to be taking for game 1, one player playing as the killer, the other player playing as the inspector, and set aside the rest of the game cards you're not utilizing for Spy Tag, Dragnet, and Buddy Cops. Each game is a little different, so I'm going to mainly cover one of them for my explanation of how to play, which kind of covers all of them in a sense, but they're all a little different. But that's the majority idea of setting up this game. A 5x5 grid, shuffle these cards, check the rules for the depending on which game you're playing, and give out the cards for the game to the players playing. There's a variety of number of players for each of the different game modes, so you can select kind of what you would like to play. Then we come over to Sellswords Olympus, and this game is fairly simple. The way it's going to work is you're going to take all of the cards from this deck here and shuffle them up. You're also going to select one of the locations. I would suggest starting with Mount Olympus for your first playthrough. And then you are going to deal out a number of cards from the deck to create a pool in which players can draft. And they're going to draft from this pool up until they get 6 cards. Once each player has 6 cards and there is a location in the middle of the table, set aside the rest of the deck of cards, as well as the tokens you'll be utilizing to score for each of the rounds, or a way to tell which the power for each of your characters, and then you're ready to go. The game plays in 2 rounds, and you're going to get 6 cards per round. And if you're the blue player, you can switch the cards or tiles to the blue side. If you're playing as the red, you'll switch to the red side. And it's a pretty simple, straightforward game. For my explanation for the game Noir Deductive Mystery, we're going to cover the game Spy Tag. This is game number 2 of the 4 different games. The first one is a 1v1. The second one here can be 1v1 or 2v2. And so each of the different game modes has a different player count and can be interchangeable depending on what game you're playing. How this one works is the same as the setup like I explained. You'll take all the cards, shuffle them up, and place them face out on the table, the cards that are yellow that have the deceased on the back, and make sure they're randomized. Take the deck of cards, shuffle it up, and it's gray cards, and then deal out 1 to each player playing the game. I'm playing with 4 players here, and then finally give each player the game card, the Spy Tag card. This is going to be what you are. In this case, you're a spy, and everybody else is as well, so the card can remain face up, and it's used for your specific actions you can take in the game. And how it works is it is a team-by-team based turn. So I will take my turn with my teammate, I'll play my turn, and then my opponent's team will choose which player plays, and then my teammate will pick, and it'll go back to me, and it'll rinse and repeat in the exact same order, going back and forth. On a player's turn, they will take one of 3 actions. Action 1 is you can do a fast shift, meaning you can take 1 or 2 cards from a column or a row and move them, thusly changing the orientation of the grid. So any cards that fall off the side will come back on the opposite side. Similar to like how Candy Crush or Tetris kind of works. Thusly you can move them in that way, or you can move them down, pushing up cards. The other thing that you can do is you can capture. Now, when you capture, you're going to each start with one random character from this gray deck here. And if you would like, although it does give away information, you can choose to take one, or kill one character that is adjacent, up, down, left, or right of yours. So if I'm playing as Clive and I want to capture, I can capture Ernest, Franklin, Ophelia, or Horatio. So I'll go ahead and flip over Ernest, and now that character has been killed. However, it tells the enemy team that my character is either Baron, Trevor, or Clive, because I can only ever kill adjacent. And that's how capturing works. Once I capture, I would pass, or once I did a fast shift, either from a column or row, I would pass. The final action is to canvas. I can select a character, so if I am Clive again, and I select Franklin to canvas, I can say, hey guys, I'm going to canvas Franklin. Is anybody other than my teammate or myself adjacent to Franklin? Now you can only canvas adjacent to yourself, just like when you choose to capture. So these other three characters, hopefully I'll get some information from another teammate or another enemy team player. So if they are, for instance, Neil, they would have to say, yes, I am adjacent to Franklin in some way. They don't have to specify which of the three they are adjacent to, but they have to say that they are one of these three. So the three actions are I can move around the characters, either in myself or not. I don't have to move my own row if I don't want to. Or I can choose to capture a character adjacent to mine, or I could choose to canvas a character adjacent to mine, and you just take one action at a time going back and forth. What eventually will happen is eventually you will capture one of your opponent's characters, or somebody will capture you. When they capture you, they'll take this card and place it in front of them, and then you will get a new card from the deck. And now you're a new character. I'm Zachary now. And the game will continue up until the point where one team captures 3 of the opposing team's suspects. And when that happens, the game is over, and the team who captured those 3 suspects is the winner. All the games play out a little differently. This is just one of them, but they are very similar in how you're going to be suspecting people and assassinating them adjacently, or being able to move the rows and columns to change the orientation of the characters. Sometimes you'll be playing as just a spy, or sometimes you'll be playing as the murderer versus the detective. And so they all involve kind of a little bit of a different style of play. I'll even cover, I guess I'll talk about the first game, the Killer versus Inspector, where the Inspector doesn't actually kill any players adjacent to him. He's going to be mainly exonerating and solving, accusing and shifting the board around, basically canvassing, trying to figure out who's who, and then suspecting who the killer is, because the killer is going to be doing the murdering, like I talked about from the previous game, where they can shift or kill, or they can disguise themselves by switching between one other character. So they have like a secret character who you suspect is the bad guy, and so they can kind of switch between those guys. So it's kind of the same thing as the spy game, but now one player is able to kill and the other player is trying to accuse the killer of who he or she thinks the killer is. But that's the basic game for Noir. It's a pretty simple kind of deduction-based grid movement game with the ability to play as bad guys or good cops, bad cops, etc., etc. In playing Sellswords Olympus is actually quite simple. Like I explained for the setup, you have the location out, and then you're going to draft. I didn't explain the draft, so I might as well do that now. 4, 5, 6, and 7. You'll take 7 cards from this main deck that's been shuffled, and you will draft them. I'll choose one, you'll choose one, I'll choose one, you'll choose one. And we'll do that up until each of us have 3 cards. There'll be a leftover card, discard that card. And then you'll rinse and repeat the draft one more time, which will net you another 3 cards each, and 1 extra card will be discarded, leaving a remainder deck. One player is going to flip to blue, because they're going to be playing the blue character, although the characters are the same front to back, and the other player will play red. Now, in the game, when you choose the home will have a unique ability, but we'll just use Zeus's home. This one just says that adjacent tiles give +1 to the controller of that specific tile at the end of the round. But these cards are going to be played one at a time from each player. I will play one of my cards, and then you will play one of your cards. You have to play the cards adjacent to a tile that's already there, and you can never make longer than a 5 row or column. So at the end of the game, you'll have a 5 by 5 grid. Now, when I play my card for my turn, I will actually take the action. I might play this Muse here, which has got zeros all around it, but it says that this tile has +2 to all its combat numbers for each adjacent tile. So for every tile that is currently adjacent to it, this gets bigger. So now it is a 3 all the way around. It's pretty powerful. Some of the unique tiles will have things that happen when you place them, or you can choose not to. Like for instance, the nymph says that you can swap any two adjacent tiles when you play it. Or Hermes says that you have to do this. It does not battle when it's placed, and you flip all tiles in the row and column that this is in, including himself. So it's kind of a wild Joker type card. When battling, you may choose to battle only one enemy tile, and if you do, this tile has +3 for its battle. And then you have cards that just last for the entirety that they're on the field. This gets +2 to all its combat numbers, right? And so they all kind of are arranged in a different way with unique specific abilities. Placing a tile down passes your turn to the next player to place a tile down of their own. And what happens is when you place tiles down, you'll check the numbers that are adjacent if there are two separate colors fighting each other. So red places on blue, you'll check the numbers. My character's got a 6, yours has a 4. That means I would win flipping over your tile. And you'll go back and forth playing these cards out until all cards have been played on the grid and battled. And remember, you can never have more than a 5x5 grid. Otherwise, once you have a 5 in a row or a column, it becomes kind of locked. And we'll just say it looks something like this at the end of a round, although this is not necessarily right based on the numbers available here. But what will happen is at the end of playing all of these tiles down, you're going to score before you move on to the next round. You'll score by going column to column and then row to row. Number of tiles you own in that column or row minus your opponent's, and you will score. So in this case, it'd be 3 blue, 0 red, 3 points for blue. 2 blue, 1 red, 1 point for blue. 3 red, 1 blue, 2 points for red. 1 and 1 is 0. And then you'll go across the opposite way. And you'll score utilizing these tokens here. And then you're going to go ahead and flip, then you're going to go ahead and start a new draft. You'll take your 7 cards, eventually you'll 1 and 1, 1 and 1 until up to the point where somebody has 6, or everybody has 6, I should say. In which case you would finish off the game. Make sure the blue player flips, and then begin placing to create that 5x5 grid. At the end of the game, when the 5x5 grid has been created, you'll score once again, going up and down, trying to get as many points as you possibly can, and whoever has the most points for their side is victorious in this tile placement game. Yeah, it's fairly simple. So this is basically my review, or double feature review, of Noir and Sellswords Olympus. They're unique games, definitely, but they kind of feel similar in some ways, I suppose. This is kind of a tile placement game and management, and this is a more grid management game. In Noir, you'll be choosing between one of 4 games. They range between 2 to 4 players, and you have kind of a variety of different options as to how you want to play, but typically speaking, I think it's going to be based on the player count. All the games are fun in their own rights, but the main idea of this game is just simply moving these characters around and deducing who has what character and when, possibly, and trying to snuff out either the murderer, or the murderer is trying to snuff out enough victims in order to win. It is a game that can, depending on the game mode, take a bit of time based on how good you are at deduction and or memory. It's definitely a memory game, especially when you start moving the characters around on the grid, kind of shuffling them up to avoid suspicion. Being able to identify Vladimir was canvassed last round, and then the next round this row was moved, and then the next thing that happened is the same person killed Julius, or Julian. Now we can assume that Linus was the murderer, but we're not 100% guaranteed on that. You have to kind of weigh in the different options, but you have to pay attention to how the grid's moving, who's doing what, and where they're doing it. And eventually, if you deduce well enough, you can get from a 25% like guaranteed odds to 50 to 100% odds and snuff out the characters. My favorite one of the bunch is probably I'd say the spy tag one. It plays up to 4 players, and you're constantly like deducing who's doing what and when. Some of the games have some like things that are not super illustrated, I guess. Like for the spy tag, it felt kind of weird as players died. You left them flipped over. When the possibility of drawing a dead character arises, it doesn't say to just discard that one and draw a new one, because you'll have to draw new spies out. But the way we did it was, the first time we played it, we flipped them and left them down. When we drew a dead character, we just discarded it. And the other way is, when you killed somebody the first time, any character that you killed originally that was not somebody gets flipped back. That version takes longer, so I suggest just playing it out the quicker way, which is when you kill a person, they're dead, and when somebody draws a new spy, after you've killed theirs, if that spy is already dead on the table, just simply draw until you get a currently living character on the game board. But yeah, the style of game is really cool. It reminds me of the Robotech games from Dave Killingsworth. He's done quite a few of these style games. This is probably one of the original style grid management games where it's not involving scoring as it is about deducing characters based on actions that you take. Artwork is great, wonderful quality of the game. All the rules are simple and complete in just a simple, it's just a few pages here. This stack of rules here lets you play up to 4 games depending on the number of player counts that you want to play. The stylization of the game is kind of this retro or 1960s style Sin City looking game, and it feels like that when you're playing it. You're constantly taking chances and making educated guesses, and there's suspense in the game, and there are also moments of kind of boredom where everybody knows who everybody is, and it's a matter of trying to make, if you kill me here, I'll kill you. We make that trade so we can keep progressing the game. Those kind of moments. But for the most part, the game has consistent espionage tactics in this game, and it's a lot of fun. All of these I recommend. All the games were a lot of fun, but definitely my favorite is Spy Tag. And then we come to Sellswords Olympus, and this is that tile management, area control style game where players are drafting, which the draft is just as important as the tile placement, determining what you need based on the board layout. So drafting is high value and feels good. The stakes are high when you're drafting in this game. Additionally, the fact that the artwork is very solid. All of the Olympic-style guardians are out there fighting against each other. It works really well. Mount Olympus being in the middle of the Parthenon, the River Styx, and Tartarus. These are all options that you can choose to play with all unique abilities. And then after the draft, playing the cards down. And while the cards are fairly simple, not super complex as to how they work, you simply play the card down, then you do the ability, and you check to see if there are any adjacent cards with higher numbers than you, in which case, if there are, you battle. So you don't have to worry if you play a card out and your card is lower value than the card you're placing adjacent to it. So if I play this 2 next step 3, it's fine. It's only when I'm attacking. But you're trying to flip over tiles, kind of like the game Go, and score based on columns and rows, and utilizing your card's special abilities to make the different values. Being able to flip cards while you're placing another card is a strong power, or having adjacent cards have lower or higher values is very useful. Each of the cards has their own value based on what the grid looks like. And it's a very simple game that works really well. If you like area control and tile management, a really cool Olympic god style theme, and then you're going to enjoy this game. I don't have a whole lot of negatives to say about Sellswords. The game is fairly straightforward. It's a 2-player game. I wish it played 4 players. That's probably my only thing I kind of would like to have seen it do, but making the 5x5 grid, I'm not sure how you would get away with that. I guess you can just play on teams of each player picks one blue or red, and we just draft and place together. You do have secondly 6 cards on each side, so I could have 3, she could have 3, and then it could be 3 and 3. So you could do this as a team game, I suppose. But otherwise, yeah, this game is wonderful. I love tile placement games. I love area control games. This is a light, simple, filler-style game. It plays quick and it's easy to teach with a great theme. So there you go, Sellswords Olympus. Both of these tiny games are currently available for you to pick up. I enjoyed both of them. They both have the same box style with a magnetic opening, and it's just mainly cards that you're going to be getting, or tiles in this case. And they're very simple and easy to teach games. I recommend both of them highly. There's a few minor sad notes with Noir on the occasion where you come in a few clarity issues, I suppose. And then of course Sellswords is only 2 players, but other than those little things, these games are excellent. They're very unique on their own, so you can pick up just one of them and not feel like you're missing out, obviously. They're just re-released games. I want to talk about both of them and cover them in kind of a longer form video. If you're interested, like I said down below. Thank you guys for watching another Unfiltered Gamer board game review for the games Noir Deductive Mystery Game and Sellswords Olympus by Level 99. If you're interested, you know. Also, subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, the bell notification button, so you can see more of our videos that we produce at least 2 or 3 times a week right now. Computer has exploded, so I'm using a separate computer, and it's been a hassle. I'm waiting for my graphics card. It's coming in soon. We do have a live stream, currently canceled until further notice. It's on Sundays at 6:30 p.m. PST, and we do a one-on stream on Thursdays. Alright guys, that's all I got for you this time, and as always, I look forward to deducing the murderer and fighting you in Olympus at the same time next time.